Hi, welcome back to Oversharing with Lyra. If you watched the first video, you know that this one is going to be about some pretty heavy subject material. And I do need to get this out of the way because it's going to be referenced back to in pretty much every video I'm probably going to make. Because that was my cat, I'm sorry. Because it's such a huge part of my life. And I'm going to start by explaining what masking actually is. If some of you don't know, masking is a coping mechanism that people, neurodiverse people dealing with mental illness will use to try to hide their struggles or their differences from the world and the population around them. And what I find really horrifying about masking is that there are still people out there who think it is in some way a healthy or positive masking, that's like a positive coping mechanism, and it is anything but. It is probably the most damaging thing that you can do to yourself outside of actual self-harm or suicide. And interestingly, masking long-term can actually lead to those things because it did with me, for sure. Masking is when you try to hide who you really are. You know you're different. It's an act of shame and fear and self-hatred. And it is so psychologically damaging. Sometimes children are even taught to mask. If you've ever spoken to an autistic person about certain organizations, then they will tell you things like, they're killing us. And this is really what they mean. They're trying to suppress them to the point that they cannot go on. And then some people aren't taught these behaviors. They just do it instinctively because they're trying to survive. It seems like the safest, best option. And that is actually the category that I fall into. I was not raised in a bad home. I was not treated badly. I was not abused or neglected. I was not told that I needed to be exactly like everybody else. In fact, individuality was encouraged. But I was a smart kid, and I was just precocious enough to know very early on that I wasn't the same as all the other little kids, especially little girls around me. And I didn't like that. I didn't want them to look at me and think, she is weird. She's different. I didn't want them to treat me badly. I didn't want to be teased or bullied or made fun of. I just wanted a nice, easy life, and I wanted to fit in, and I wanted to be like the other kids were. So I started pretending. It's actually really humiliating when you see kids around you doing things and it looks so easy for them and you're like, I can't do that. Why can't I do that? It's clearly simple. Why aren't I doing it? So I think probably the earliest that I can remember is like maybe first grade, maybe kind of suppressing things. And then with every grade level, every age that I gained, I suppressed more and I suppressed more and I suppressed more. But I think the big thing was fourth grade. I had like my epiphany moment. I don't remember like an exact event or anything that triggered it, but I do very clearly remember thinking, I am not like these other kids. I don't do what they do. I don't care about what they care about. I'm not interested in any of this stuff. But I couldn't say that because everyone was into it, right? Everyone cared about boy bands, and they cared about cars, and they cared about sports, and they cared about who's boyfriend or girlfriend, or celebrities or TV shows, and just all of this stuff that I didn't care about. Because what was I doing at this age? I was reading Arthurian legends and Greek mythology, and I was super into art and music, classical music of all things. I wanted to live in fantasy land. I spent most of my time up here in my head. I would like spend hours alphabetizing my book collection and like dusting off all my pretty sparkly stones and things that I had. I would just go outside and wander around and have these little, imaginative conversations with all these invented characters around me and things. I didn't care about that other stuff, but I didn't know what to do. I already knew that I was not as good at being social as the other kids around me. And so I would start watching them, not like in a creepy way, but like in an I'm studying them way. And I would, I would watch their gestures, their facial expressions, their tones of voice, the things that they would say if they had like a little catchphrase or a little cute little thing they said or some slang or something. Like, I'm going to remember that, right? I remember watching some interactions and like literally thinking things like, that's the way humans communicate with other humans. I'm going to remember that for the next time I communicate with a human, right? And so I tried really hard. I tried really, really hard. I pushed myself to be social when it was the last thing that I wanted. I tried to have, good friends. Like, I'm not saying that I was pretending to be people's friends. I wasn't. I love my friends. But I was pretty positive they all hated me. And I was just around for like amusement. Like I know they have to make fun of me or behind my back because I am so awkward. And I don't really think they did. Some of them could have, I don't know, but like my real good friends, I don't think they did that. But it didn't matter because that's what was in my head. And I remember in 6th grade, I came to the conclusion that there had to be something wrong with me. I was just struggling too hard with things that shouldn't be a problem. I was just miserable. I was so miserable. There has to be a reason. And so I decided I was schizophrenic. Like I really, really thought I was. So probably between, I'm going to say grade 6 to grade 8 or 9, I was still terrified I was schizophrenic. I thought, I have nothing but respect for people who have to deal with schizophrenia. But it was not my struggle. It really wasn't. And it took me a while to realize that. But I just knew there had to be something. And I knew something was wrong. I finally told my mom, I was like, I need to see a doctor. There's something wrong with me. And of course, at no point in my education did any teacher say, Laura might have ADHD. She has some trouble focusing. She has some trouble staying in her seat. She has some trouble socializing with her peers. Maybe there's a problem. Maybe we need to test that. Nobody noticed. I was shy. I was maybe well behaved even. I was precocious. I was maybe a little awkward, but that's okay. It was a joy to have in class. I might not turn in my work, even if I did it. And I might make bad grades for that. But most of the teachers were very lenient with me because my mom worked at the school and I was such a good kid. And I got by with a lot of things that should have been red flags, would be today. But at the time that I lived and the place that I lived, nobody had ADHD, nobody had autism, nobody had anything. Unless they were a little white boy, okay? And that's just facts. So yeah, I struggled and I didn't know why. And I thought it has to be because there's something wrong with me. And so when I get to the doctor and I'm saying, I'm having all these struggles. Well, I'd already been on antidepressants since 6th grade, to be honest with you. What did I hear? Well, you're depressed. And then later on, as I got older and more things happened, it was like, you have anxiety, you have OCD, you have sociophobia, you have poor social skills. And they just kept piling things on. And I kept thinking, but why? Why? I've not had a traumatic life. Why are people all around me functioning without drama? And I can't do the simplest things. I know I'm a smart kid. I knew that. But I couldn't do basic things that anyone can do, no matter what their IQ is. A disservice was done to me, mostly because of the time in which I lived, honestly. A disservice was done to a lot of us. But I didn't know any of that. I just thought I was wrong, that my brain was wrong. I was wrong. I hid everything I could from everyone that I could. Little bits of me would peek out, but I would go right back into hiding. I pushed myself to do things I never should have done. And I was miserable like 100% of the time. I was so miserable, I couldn't deal with it anymore. And I was a cutter. I would literally cut myself because that was some sort of release. I didn't allow myself the healthy things like stimming. I didn't allow myself the healthy things like expressing myself, being who I am. So I had to do something. And that was it. I cut myself. I had eating disorders. I would starve myself. I would binge. I would purge. I did have very strong suicidal tendencies. I was obsessed with suicide, to the point where, like, if I was in the bathroom for too long, my mom would be like at the door checking to see what was going on. I did try to kill myself one time. Only one attempt, and it was thwarted really, early on. But those desires did not go away for years. I struggled all through my teens. It was horrible. My 20s, also horrible. And all of the hormone issues that you have at those ages really make dealing with all of that stuff even harder. So, it wasn't until I was around 40 that I realized it's okay to be me. I mean, I'm talking 20s and 30s. I'm still forcing myself to do things I don't really want for my life, but I'm doing it because that's what you're supposed to do. And I'm trying so hard to be what you're supposed to be, right? It took being the age that I am to finally open my eyes and think, do I even know who I am anymore? I have been, and I hate to pull this reference up, but it's so good. Silence of the Lambs for y'all. I've been making a human suit. I've been taking pieces of other people and stitching them together the best I can. And every morning I get up and I shrug on that human suit. I put on my mask. Oh my God, I have an array of masks, one for every occasion. And I would get really upset if I was wearing one mask and then suddenly things change and I'm not prepared for that. I don't know how to act now. I'm in the headspace of this character. You can't switch characters and scenes on me. Everything was pretend. Everything was pretend. And it wasn't meant to deceive, and it wasn't meant to be a liar or anything. I was trying to be that person because that's what you're supposed to be. Finally realized that's not true. That's a lie. It's a lie that society tells you. This is the box that you came from. You better fit into it for the rest of your life. No. If you're someone who thinks you might be masking, all I can say is stop immediately. And it's not going to be a fast process. It's going to be slow. It's going to be hard. It is going to be excruciatingly hard. It might take you years, but it's worth it. If you suspect someone you love might be masking, oh my God, tell them to stop and get them into therapy. And I don't just mean talk to a counselor. I mean long-term therapy, because trust me, if they're masking, they need it. They need it hard. Nobody masks without absolutely despising themselves. I hate that it took me so long to stop, but I absolutely love that I have. And I like sharing myself with the world, whether the world wants that or not. I love just being the weirdo that I am openly. And I don't really care if people look down on me for that or act snooty about it or snide or make comments. To be honest, I think those are a badge of honor for me. That just proves that I'm doing a good job. I'm doing a great job of being me. And I'm definitely not trying to wear that human suit and all those awful masks anymore. I'm not 100%. I don't know that I ever will be 100%. Probably a good 90. And I'm happy with that. There are still things that I'm working on, but I'm definitely more me than I have been since, probably toddlerhood or something. And what's really sad is I know there's people out there that are still doing it. There are people out there that are still trying to get others to do it. If you are trying to get God forbid, a child or an adult to mask. Don't. If you care anything about them as a person, don't do that. And if you're struggling with unmasking, I just want to say, cut yourself some slack, because it's really hard and it takes some time. It is a struggle that it took me years. And like I said, I'm not all the way there. And now that I've gotten like that really rough stuff out of the way, we're going to talk about some things that aren't quite as heavy and quite as awful. But I will be referencing that masking through this whole thing because, I've been masking for literal decades now. So there's not really a whole lot I can talk about in my life that doesn't involve some masking. And I know that I rambled on way too long, so I'm going to make myself stop now. But I'm sure I'll have plenty more to say about masking later, because I'm pretty positive I've left some things out. And if you have experiences with masking that you want to share, I'm a safe person to talk to because I'm not going to gossip about you. Or if you're ready to unmask yourself in the public, I encourage you to do so. It's healthy for you, and it can also be really encouraging to others. So thank you if you stuck with me for all of this mess. And I hope that you will come back and we'll talk about some stuff that isn't quite as yucky. So, I really don't know how to end these things, but bye.